Welcome to the TechLink Health Podcast, an on-demand source for the top trending healthcare topics and insights. Delivered by key opinion and emerging leaders and as featured on the TechLink Health app. The healthcare industry is rapidly evolving, so our goal is to connect listeners to the most relevant insights, ranging from digital health to financial well-being to interesting side gigs. For more details, visit www.techlink.health.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the TechLink Health Podcast. I am Justine Reese, your host today, and today's episode I am super excited about. We're going to focus on leading mindfulness techniques that help in the journey to achieve optimal mental health, as well as technologies that help in making that connection. The topic is super timely. We've had many experts brace for a long-term impact on mental health after the pandemic. But I think even leading into the pandemic, some of these technologies were starting to bring mindfulness and technology together with people and community. And this episode's guest is the lovely Jessica Amos, who is a meditation teacher, life and transformation coach, and founder of Stay With Yourself, the practice of being who you are, where you are. And I actually met Jessica through technology. I would probably never know Jessica except that we met on Insight Timer, where she leads a community through Stay With Yourself and has many meditations as well as courses that I have personally found valuable and found a community that has also found value in it. And hi, Jessica. Hello. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about you, and then I want you to talk about yourself a little bit too, in your own words. But I'm gonna lay out your incredible bio. So, as a meditation teacher, Jessica is regularly featured on Insight Timer, which is the #1 meditation app in the world, which is pretty incredible. I didn't even know that. And internationally, she is known for her TEDx talk about healing anxiety through present moment awareness. Her online catalog of mindfulness courses and guided meditations are consistently met with glowing positive feedback from her and 1 million students worldwide, of which I am pleased to be one of them. 1 million students, Jessica. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I counted recently and I was amazed. It's just based on downloads and different stuff. But yeah.
And can you
wild.
just share, I'm going to ask right now, how that changed during the pandemic? Did that number grow massively, double, triple? What happened?
Yeah, I'd say it probably quadrupled.
Right.
Yeah, it's massive.
So, we're going to get into what happened and how people came to find you and other modalities of mindfulness that just maybe they would never have looked for or felt they needed. So it goes without saying that Jessica has built a vibrant community and that she has a passion for helping others to feel more deeply connected, joyful, and free within themselves and their relationships. And I am just so excited to get your perspectives. Without further ado, we are super excited to welcome Jessica to the podcast. Woohoo! Jessica, thank you so much for being here. So I laid out a little bio about you, but I want to hear in your own words, introducing yourself in a bit more detail about your own journey into this mindfulness and life transformation space. How did you get here?
Oh gosh.
Tell us your story in 10 words or less.
That's such a big question and very simple at the same time. So I came to this for the same reason most people come to it. I've struggled with chronic anxiety most of my life. I was feeling very reactive in my relationships and as a parent and just, really like I wasn't enjoying how I was showing up in life and just how I felt inside. And I had a friend who was actually my business coach at the time who kept encouraging me to meditate, to meditate, to meditate. And I was like, I didn't really want to, but I'd also, started going to yoga at the time and starting to explore some more modalities that were supportive for me. And for the course of a year, he kept sending me these links to these Oprah, Deepak Chopra 21-day meditation challenges. They were free and you could sign up. Did you?
Yeah,
It sounds
I,
like
I
you're
think I never actually completed the 21 days, but I definitely had that on my phone. But can you tell us, what were you doing at the time? If it wasn't mindfulness, what was your work that you had a business coach for?
Well, I had just started Stay With Yourself, actually. And I had started it as a storytelling co op. I was putting on these storytelling events and working with people around learning to actually start to acknowledge the things inside of themselves that they hadn't been willing to even say out loud or to admit. And then also creating, kind of audience and group feedback to where people could show up, they could share their very vulnerable, private things that we think that we can't share with anybody, and find out that, first of all, it's okay to share, that we can be met with love, grace, and compassion. It's cathartic to say it out loud, not hold it inside anymore. And then for the audience or for the group, anyone listening, they get to find out they're not alone too. And it gives them courage to do the same. So that's what Stay With Yourself started as my business. But Stay With Yourself came to me as a mantra and a way of like life and living, because I had been going to marriage counseling at the time too. And I was telling this story to the therapist. Well, I was more like venting to the therapist about how my husband, I was always feeling ditched by my husband at the time I was married. He was always walking ahead of me or ditching me here. I just had this perception that I was being ditched all the time. And I was telling this story about how I was feeling rushed and the rushing to catch up kind of feeling, because I was moving at a different pace. And my therapist said, "It sounds like you need to learn to stay with yourself." And I was like, I just looked at him and I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that even
I'm
mean?
running.
So
I'm
I
running to catch up. What are you talking about?
I
Stay with
know.
myself.
What are you talking about? And he's like, it sounds like, because I was upset because, I had ordered a coffee and I needed to put cream and sugar in it and take my time. And my husband was out the door before I even had my coffee in my hand. And so it was just it was a simple moment, but it felt like it was really highlights how I was living my whole life of just not taking the time to slow down and put cream and sugar in my coffee. I'm like, oh, I'll just drink it black so I can go catch up. And he wasn't doing anything malicious or harmful to me. He was just doing his pace. And so this was a learned thing I'd been living from my whole life. So that moment of the therapist saying, sounds like you need to learn to stay with yourself, I really started exploring what that meant for me. And then that's when the storytelling stuff started coming along. And so I was already in that work while raising young kids and doing all this stuff when I started meditating, doing these 21-day challenges that just absolutely changed my life forever. I completed like all these challenges throughout the year. And I had really, the reason I resisted this Oprah Deepak Chopra 21-day thing is I was like, that seems like a cop out. That, to me, I was like, that's not real meditation.
Because it was on an app, or because it wasn't in a class, or what made it seem like a cop out?
I think because it was Oprah and it didn't seem like, it wasn't monks in a monastery. I wasn't going on retreat. Yeah, I wasn't going to a local class or a service of some kind of meditation. I was doing this online. I was downloading these things on my computer, and it just felt like, but it changed. And soon as I said, okay, I will do it, I'm at my wit's end with like really needing something, and I did it. It changed the entire course of my life. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here without it.
So I didn't know that story, and I think that's amazing. Can you tell us what year that was? Because what is fascinating to me is we are here at the TechLink Health podcast talking about technology and talking to you about how, you're quadrupled your audience and helped so many million people find meditation. And you yourself found it through technology, in fact.
Yeah. So that would have been 2011 or 2012.
So really, yeah, you weren't even probably on your phone. You were on your computer doing that.
No, I think I saw a flip phone at the time.
Flip phone. Flip phone. Okay. So let's catch up now to maybe tell us what it was like starting on apps, or if there was others before Insight Timer for you, and then into the pandemic, and what those transitions were like, and what you felt the audience and how the community built around it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll start back a little farther. So after I'd started meditating, I had started teaching really close after starting my meditation practice myself. So my teaching and my personal practice have always been like hand in hand. And I actually started doing online courses. I think I launched my first online course in 2013, almost 10 years ago.
Wow.
And I would send it as an email to people. And there would be 10 people or 20 people or 30 people that would come to these courses.
So wait a second. Were you giving these away at the time, or was there a fee for the course? And then was there a live element as part of it, or was it modules kind of thing?
Yeah. So what didn't look at all like how courses look now, because it wasn't a very popular thing at the time. So it was live, but not video live. But what I would do is I'd record a live video every week and send it out. And it would be through people's questions. There was a Facebook group, a Facebook community where people would connect and share. And we would still even utilize things like Instagram and social media, because I would have one week in there where I encourage people to like share. Part of the course was to share some things on social. So that was still a part of it, which is interesting because it's, a thing that's happening now, but it wasn't live, like live calls or anything. It was just me sending out emails every week. And so I did that for a while. And I always recommended the app Insight Timer, because at the time, Insight Timer was just a timer. It's just a timer app. That's all it was. It was just, you could have different bells and sounds and set the time. And then I went through my divorce and I took some time away. And in 2017, 2018, I was talking with my friend Karen, who was talking about Insight Timer. She's using it all the time. And I was like, that sounds familiar. I think I used to recommend that app to people. Because I stopped using the app. And she goes, oh, it's just all these free guided meditations. And I go, I just have all these guided meditations just sitting around. I'm not using them. I'm just going to upload them. And at the time, there were maybe like 200 teachers on the app. Now I think there's like 2,000 or more probably.
It is literally, I went on this morning, just sidebar, and this is actually how I found you. And I don't remember what I typed in, but it was probably something like relationships. But this morning I typed in prayer, and I ended up in a live prayer where I got to type in some names that I wanted to pray for. And suddenly I was part of 55 people praying for the people I wanted to put in prayer. And Insight Timer created that. And so with you, I probably typed in relationship or something, and then I took one of your courses. And then what happens, for those that don't know and haven't had the joy of using Insight Timer like this yet, you can type feedback or questions for the teacher. And Jessica responded to the question, like literally. And I didn't even realize for a long time that there was a response there. And then I went, wait a second. And she was talking to me, this person that I was still just not someone who had ever like met or anything. And that is the beauty. I mean, it's so beautiful. And some of the stuff is free on Insight Timer. And obviously, I think you have to pay to do the courses. There's a yearly fee. Quite frankly, it's on my credit card. I don't even really know what it is anymore.
It's so cheap, Justine. It's $60 a year. It's $5 a month.
And the fact that you can try it out for free and get all this connection, and then by paying $60, you get so much more. You get so much live stuff, So, okay, I have to ask this question because there's a term that I think you've used, and I'm really curious about it, and I want you to tell us more about the meaning of soul docent. I really love the idea of having a docent at the museum, and now I have a soul docent. Talk about it a little bit.
Great question. So not a lot of people know what a docent even is, so I don't use it as much as I would prefer. But when I was back when I was starting Stay With Yourself, when I was doing storytelling events and I was, really starting into this work, I was like, what am I going to call myself? So I did the whole brain dump on a piece of paper and I'm circling the words and I'm smashing things together. And that's where soul docent came from. So the way that I see it is my work, and this has not changed, whether it was storytelling, whether it's meditation, whether it's courses, whether it's coaching, this is all that I still do. This is my heart's calling, really, is I help walk you through the gallery of your own soul. I help you really tap into like the inner beauty, the inner creativity. I mean, it's not even beauty. I mean, it is beauty and creativity, but it's just, let's start exploring yourself on a deep, soulful level. Let's walk around as if we are walking through a gallery, and we get to be interactive, and it's this unique world within you. And it's beautiful in there. And just like any gallery or any show that's happening, there's all these different exhibits happening inside of us at any given time, and they swap out and we change and we grow. And it's just this ever evolving inner world that we have that's absolutely beautiful, that we don't give enough attention to, in my opinion.
I am getting this image. I recently went to Ireland and I took my two boys with me, 18 and 21. And of course, I thought we'd pop into a museum, but they asked to go to a museum in Belfast. And that was the first one we went to. And then we went to one in Dublin, which was like the National Gallery. And they're all free, by the way. We were at like the Ulster Museum. And I got this image of you saying, walking around your own inner gallery. And I'm picturing my boys in this art museum, like stopping at the paintings, reading the stuff, looking at the artwork. I mean, it was incredible to me. And then they did it again. They wanted to. I wasn't like dragging them in, like they wanted to go into this museum. And they took their time. They're like, no, we're not ready to leave yet. I'm like, what? So I'm picturing that because it was them, it was me watching them see art in that way for the first time, even though they're both very artistic. So I'm imagining now like doing that inside myself. And I know that I've done some of this work with you, and that is so beautiful. So I love the idea of the soul docent. So in other episodes, we've talked about all kinds of themes related to the pillars of wellness: sleep, diet, exercise, stress management, as well as the tech that helps, such as wearables, devices, apps, and then with all the things we're talking about. So I want to hear more about your experiences with Insight Timer, which again, as we've already noted, is one of the top meditation apps in the world. What are your general thoughts on technologies being used in the meditation space, which is how you found meditation, how I have really sunk into meditation more, how I met you. Jessica has a group on Stay With Yourself on Mondays that is a community, and a lot of the same people show up. And one day in there, I realized somehow magically that there was a woman that I knew from another group that we have now met in person, and we met on Insight Timer. She lives in Los Angeles. I mean, it's really incredible that the community is doing, it's quite miraculous, frankly. So I just want to talk a little bit more about it. And if there's other technologies you've seen sprung up like this, or just more about this space, Insight Timer, and how these communities are building. And you have actually done half-day meditation groups online. And I know you have a big one coming up in person.
Yeah, I do love this question. So I love Insight Timer. I love the back end people, everyone that's produced all the things. And so when I started, it was just a free app with free guided meditations. And then Insight Timer, and they weren't even profitable. The app wasn't even profitable. It's all free. So they decided they want to start offering more. So they started offering courses. And I was like, get me in on that, because I'm a course person.
So real quick, I just was curious, Jessica, because you already had courses. Did you upload courses that you already had, or did you create new ones when the course stuff started?
I created new ones because, again, in Insight Timer, they had a very specific way that they wanted to do courses. And I've been running the same course for so long that I was excited about this opportunity to start doing these like smaller, more compact courses. Like the first one I did was on boundaries. The next one I did was on 30 days of presence in everyday life. And now I have like nine or 10 courses on there.
I've done a few of them. They're incredible.
Yeah. So I would say that what I love about it, and I actually don't use a lot of technology just because for me, I feel like it can sometimes put on a lot of pressure. Like if I'm wearing a watch and it's telling me I got to take so many steps, I know that works for a lot of people, but for me, because of how my inner dialogue works, it's just another opportunity to beat myself up. And for me, it's like really learning to listen, what feels good for me, what feels best for me, and then utilizing a small number of technologies that support that. So Insight Timer is supportive because they're so thoughtful. We wouldn't have community on Insight Timer if it weren't for Insight Timer deciding that we needed to have community on Insight Timer, right? We wouldn't have the Monday Vibes if it wasn't for Insight Timer deciding. When they first rolled that out, I was like, I don't know, And I was having conversations with some other teachers who were feeling very much like they weren't sure how they felt about doing these lives. Are they going to have to like now start selling themselves and asking for donations, and they want to give their time away for free. And each teacher has to decide for themselves. But for me, especially with the live feature and like seeing how community is built, I had decided that what I wanted to do is commit to doing it for a year, every week for a year. And now it's been like 2 years, I think. And I've been consistent. I've done it pretty much every Monday, except for if I'm sick or on vacation for the last 2 years.
I want to explain for our audience a little bit more how the live thing works, because it was actually a little baffling to me when I finally did pay my $60 or whatever for the year. And I'm like, oh my God, there's so much access to all these different things. But what happens is, you type in whatever, like I did this morning, prayer, and there happened to be at that moment a live prayer meeting. And I probably typed in something else. Or I started following Jessica and realized, oh, there's a Monday morning thing. That sounds cool. Let me tune in. So whatever you type in, it might say live in 3 days from now is something's going to start and you can make a note about it. I mean, it's just incredible, the access. And then there's an opportunity to donate to the teacher. And for those of you that utilize these things, I think this is really, really important, and donate what you can. And I want you to talk about that too, Jessica, because I'm assuming that's how you make money when you do these things. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to put food on the table, and you're giving a lot of yourself and your soul. So does that work out for you? And I know probably some people do and some people don't and whatever. But, I have learned that I do give what I can. And the truth is, it feels a little weird because you're on the app, donate, and then you have to have something on Apple Pay, I guess. And it's like, click, click. Okay, I just donated, $3.99 or $4.99 or whatever I've done. Talk about that, what that feels like, and as a teacher, how that works.
That's a great question. So I'll back up again a little bit before we get to donating and lives and stuff. Before that was ever a thing on Insight Timer, and I like talking about Insight Timer, but the most in terms of tech, I was doing my courses, and Insight Timer was the first app. I had other apps who had reached out to me over the years, like, hey, could you put this up? And I would give them a little bit and kind of see how it went. And I never got paid. I was supposed to be getting paid, and it was like this very minuscule amount. And I just was like, I mean, it's whatever, right? But then Insight Timer, when they decided to start doing the courses, it was they really, really, really wanted to support the teachers. So teachers get the bulk of what students are paying in membership, of what users are paying for that membership fee. Is most of it is going directly to teachers. So that to me is like, if you're going to support any app, this is an app that actually supports its teachers. I actually get paid from Insight Timer, and I get paid every month from Insight Timer for my courses and even on my engagement and that kind of thing. And I don't get paid to do the lives unless students donate. And I don't make a lot off donations. Donations are not why I do the lives, but because of the lives and because of the courses and because the other free content, I put a lot of free content out, as you know, on social media, on Insight Timer, a lot of free stuff. That's also where people come to me to do like one-on-one coaching, or they sign up for half-day retreats or other things that they get to pay and buy into on a deeper level. And for me, I've had to do a lot of work around charging as a teacher. And this is a conversation I love because this is an industry that a lot of people are not accustomed to paying for. And a lot of teachers don't know how to charge for their time and their work. So there are a lot of teachers are working second jobs or other jobs or doing other things, and they're doing this on the side because they cannot be supported by it. And when I made the commitment that I get to be supported by this work, because I cannot support this many students and this many people coming into my space unless I'm supported financially. Like if I'm stressed because I can't pay my bills, how in the world can I be of service to people? So there's that aspect of it that I love talking to people about. And I love talking to students and users or anyone that shows up in this space, reminding them that, like in a new earth economy, the most valuable thing we can invest in is spiritual transformation, is ourselves. So like when we start voting with our dollars differently in the way that we live our lives, and we start investing in things like whether it's a coach or a course or meditation, or we start donating to teachers and we start showing energetically what it is we value by the way that we spend our money, that becomes enormously transformative. And I know that personally, when I've decided to, instead of being in fear and holding and clinging onto my money, I choose to put it towards something that's actually going to grow me spiritually and internally. It has changed my life for the better without question.
I mean, just to insert, that's really the abundant attitude of what I give to myself will come back to me. And I always say that too. I work in the space of voiceover and I help people start voiceover careers. So people come to me usually on the brink of how do I do this? What do I do? And it always ends up coming back to it is an investment in yourself and it's hard to do. It's so hard for people to do $60 a year. But when you think about it, when we go to college, we don't think about, or our parents or whatever are spending $40,000 a year and we just do that. We just go ahead and do that. And we have no idea what's going to happen. So I always say, if you have a day job and you don't love it and you want to invest in yourself creatively or you want to invest in yourself growth, think of your job as, like your parents paying for college, and that self growth or that creative idea, or if it's your voiceover career, your painting career, your writing career, whatever it is, it's going to come back to you. And I think this idea of sitting with yourself, like you are teaching, a million people to do, is how, honestly, like that's how we all get back to peace, because we'll be more in peace in ourselves because we're going to love what we do. But it's a shift. And the fact that Insight Timer has a free offering to help us make the shift to start investing financially in ourselves through donation into people like you to help this greater good of a creative life and a more peaceful, joyful life. Wow. I don't know where that came from. I hope that makes sense.
Justine's got some things to say. Yes. I mean, it doesn't just happen overnight, and it's scary, and we have a lot of fear around spending, but you make a really good point about, I mean, I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with where we've had that exact conversation where I'm like, well, coaching with me isn't cheap. It's not $1 million. You're not going to go broke over it, but it's not cheap because I also want to know that you're invested, and that's the conversation I'll have. Well, sometimes we'll talk about the investment. And I had a client recently who was like, well, I paid more than that for a camera lens. Right. Or I paid 20, 30 times that for my college education and my master's degree, and I don't even do anything with it. Right. So there's these things that we say it's okay to spend money on because it's some sort of guarantee, like our education or our work or whatever. And these other things that we're like, oh, we can't spend money on that. And some of it's a value, a self-worth thing. And some of it's just, we've never done it before.
Right. I think that's the key. And then, I end up working with a lot of people, as you probably do too, that are at a certain point in their life where they're like, well, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. And maybe I think the pandemic helped with this in a way. I only have today. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And, you can talk to that in terms of where are we going? How can we expect the mindfulness space and meditation space to evolve from where we are now? I mean, I'm excited. So what do you see with that in the next 5 to 10 years?
Ugh. Yeah. Where I see it going is it's starting to become like more integrated into how we understand ourselves, how we understand our lives. I mean, just when I started years ago, it was like, what is that? Even I was resistant to it, right? Because I was like, I don't know. But now it's just so much more of a common thing. We're talking about these things more. People are starting to feel more open to the idea of not just mindfulness and meditation, but like my moment of putting cream and sugar in my coffee and learning, like there's just a certain feeling that a lot of us have. And I think the pandemic really did bring this out for a lot of people, was like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my life? And what am I doing hanging out with these people? And what am I do running around, like doing things that I don't even want to do? There's this whole question that I think is happening for people right now about who am I? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? What do I actually want to do? I mean, these are a lot of really big questions.
But there was a global force that made us. That's what I thought was so beautiful about the pandemic. It's like it was a time in our lives, and who knows if this will ever happen again, that I got to experience with the people I love and the people that I maybe love but didn't want to live with anymore, that we got to just sit and go, is this working? Because I was running around so much, as most of us were, just living. I wasn't asking, is this working? I just was like, I make it work. I'm going to force it into working.
Yeah. And I think that we're tired. I find I ran into this, and a lot of people I work with, I talk to, we're tired of making things work that don't work for us.
Totally.
We're tired of just surviving and doing these unconscious things that we've been doing our whole lives, that our parents probably did, that their parents probably did, So I see that we're still at a choice point. We're still at a point where it's really each individual choosing, like, am I going to stay in fear of the unknown and not step forward into it? Or am I going to stay with what's familiar, even though it's painful and I hate it and it sucks and I'm miserable and I'm a victim in it? Am I going to stay because it's familiar? Or am I going to choose to step into the unfolding unknown and trust that things could be even better than I ever imagined? And I can honestly say anytime I've stepped beyond my comfort zone, gone beyond my limits, chose like kind of faith over fear in a lot of ways.
I was just thinking the idea of turning fear into faith, but then you threw another F word in there that I think is in the middle. And it's like fear, familiar, faith, and unfolding was another. It's not really a start with an F, but I love that. Helps me remember things. We could keep talking. We will keep talking, but I want to know, is there any sort of final words to learn more about mindfulness and life transformation? Obviously, tell us the best way to stay connected to you and your work. And if you have any book recommendations that you love to either listen to or, by the way, Jessica reads a lot of beautiful, beautiful poetry and readings from a lot of amazing books. And one of them I can think off the top of my head was Untethered Soul by Michael Singer and his other new book. But answer that for us.
Beautiful. I'll start there and then we'll go into how to connect. I love books. I love poetry. So Untethered Soul, such a beautiful book. The Open Hearts Club is the name of the live stream we do on Mondays on Insight Timer. And it really was inspired by Michael Singer's book, because he says in his book that it's possible to open our hearts so wide, to be so undefended that we never close ever again. And when I read that, it became like a prayer for me in a lot of ways. Like, that is what I'm choosing for my life. And so anyway, Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. The Mindfulness Code by Donald Altman is super good, especially if you're wanting to start getting into like mindfulness. He tells some really great stories. A book that I recommend in a lot of my courses, actually. So Sherry Huber is a Buddhist monk, but she writes these series of books that are like almost like you're reading a children's book, because some of this stuff is very difficult. Even though it's so simple, it's difficult to grasp and to take in such new ideas. So Sherry Huber is a favorite of mine. She writes about fear. She writes about being the person you want to find, like all kinds of stuff in these really basic mindfulness ways. I actually have a list on my website, staywithyourself.com, of 50 of my favorite nonfiction books. So anyway, you can go check that out too.
So there's a way to stay connected too. Staywithyourself.com is Jessica's website.
Yeah. So you can go to staywithyourself.com, connect with me there. You can go to Instagram and type in Jessica Amos and find me there. Those are the two places I hang out the most. And then of course, Insight Timer, definitely go find me there.
And then of course, like the other places, I'm sure connect with you on LinkedIn. I mean, this has just been so insightful. I think this is incredible. As we were talking, I was thinking about how I even found some app that says it's like breath. I don't ever go to this app, but it dials in and tells me to breathe a few times a day. And just how that little moment, we can just return ourselves to a peaceful place, how quickly we can take ourselves into an unpeaceful place. And it's people like you and apps like Insight Timer that are really healing us in a whole new way through technology. And that's kind of what this TechLink Health podcast is all about. So this was just a fantastic, perfect episode. And I'm really thrilled you got to join us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a delight, a true delight. And I'm super grateful to have met you.
And I will see you Monday morning, if not before. I will hear you Monday morning. Thank you so much for joining us, Jessica. This is Justine Reese signing off for the TechLink Health podcast today.
Thanks for listening to this episode. TechLink Health is a healthcare advisory platform for consumers and organizations to stay informed with the latest insights while connecting with healthcare experts for telehealth, e-consults, and consulting services. For more details, visit www.techlink.health.